Good morning, good afternoon. How you doing out there today? This is David Robert for the Marketplace of Ideas podcast. Just want to say thank you for listening in, and thank you for wherever you are in the world today, taking a time out of your day to stop in, take a listen, take a load off. I appreciate it. Just want to give a quick shout out to all the fathers out there. I stopped by to see my dad yesterday. Got him a nice case of Guinness. He always appreciates that. So yeah. And then today I went with the kids and the wife. We went to the Rib Fest here in Spruce Grove, Alberta. So that was fun. There was live music. There was a lot of... it was just a really nice scene. The weather held up really nicely. And it was just a pleasant experience, you know. So a shout out to all the dads out there, adopted dads, dads who, you know, are not biological, but they still step up, take on the responsibility. Shout out to all of you out there. And just want to let you know you can also find the Marketplace of Ideas podcast wherever you get your podcasts, from Google Play until the end of June. You can get Google Play, Podbean, iTunes. We are there. You can also find us on YouTube. I am slowly starting to unprivatize some of the episodes. I guess what happened was when I loaded them up onto YouTube, I put them in a private setting. So I'm just kind of there's about close to 150. So look for that. And then we also have the Adult Fitness podcast, which we took a little break for, but we are starting up again. I'm starting training for something I'll reveal on that podcast, so we're going to be revitalizing that. And we also have the Strange Tales podcast, so we're going to be, you know, touching on that a little bit. And like I said, into the coming months, we're going to see a little bit of a change with the podcast, where with the Marketplace, anyways, we're going to be looking at pop culture, almost specifically, but not entirely, through the lens of literature, movies, and music. So that trinity that makes up a lot of what we define as pop culture. I recently came into about almost 150 novels, books, paperbacks, hardcovers, also about probably close to 200 or so DVDs and television series and things of that nature. And then I'm just going through some of the music that I have. So we're going to be kind of streamlining things a little bit, getting a bit more of a sort of a different workflow going on. But just I look forward to that in the next couple of months. It should be fun. So today we're going to be chatting about something that I've seen in the news recently. And I want to kind of title this The Long Road Back. I think Nickelback had an album like that or something. But The Long Road Back, in particular, refers to what happens when socialites, athletes, actors, actresses, political figures, social types, people who are a part of the zeitgeist in our society, fall out of favor with popular culture, but then find their way back. Everybody loves a underground comeback story, and there's no better story than in Hollywood or the music industry or literary fiction and horror and science fiction, where an author or an actor will say something that is just out of touch with the way culture is moving, or the way pop culture is moving right now, and they kind of find themselves canceled, or they find themselves just cast out into the void, into the unforgiving wilderness that is irrelevancy. And we've seen it in almost every genre we could think of. There's either an athlete or a movie star who has just run out of films. There's just no more stories to tell. They just either got sick of the whole thing, said some crazy shit, and people said, hey, that's pretty racist, that's pretty misogynist, that's pretty rapey, we don't want you to speak anymore, and we're done with you. And in the last couple of years, we've seen it with Johnny Depp and the Amber Heard situation, where there was accusations on both of these actors that there was abuse, verbal, physical, and just not a good mix. and the media seemed to jump on Johnny Depp's side, and there were other people that were on Amber Heard's side. Along with that, there was the case with Kevin Spacey with many allegations of sexual impropriety with minors, in which he's never actually been officially charged with anything, if I'm not mistaken, but a lot of the people that were, accusing him of things, like Anthony Rapp from Rent fame, as well as other various films. I think he was also in Star Trek. He had accused him of trying to either touch him or groom him in a way, and that was, kind of just thrown out. We've seen people such as Will Smith with the success of Bad Boys, the last I can never say that word properly. The last interpretation or the last version of Bad Boys. The film has done surprisingly well, and it seems that he is now uncanceled or uncancelable. And we see people like Dave Chappelle just keep trucking along, Ricky Gervais, who are comedians who just really don't give a shit about any of it. And I mean, to be fair, Dave Chappelle canceled himself back in the day, so it's kind of hard to do that to somebody who would do it to themselves. But I just wanted to talk about what it means in our society to kind of say something that kind of pisses people off, or do something that is, demonstrably awful, and then get a second chance. And so, a little backstory here. For the longest time, I've had issues with certain actors or actresses that have ripped people off. So you look at the music industry, you see what happened with T-Boss, Left Eye and Chili, how they were screwed over by the record label. We heard the horror stories about what happened to, people such as Mariah Carey and Tupac Shakur and Dr. Dre, and just all these artists that just got screwed over for their royalties, and how now they're some of them have been recording for 20 or more years. They're like, hey, now we can re-record our masters and start to get that revenue back after, these companies have eaten for almost 2 decades off of the backs of their talent. And so I've often been, sort of upset, angry at people who just screw people over. And recently I had some people in my own personal life, nothing crazy happened or anything like that, but, I'd run afoul with certain things they had said and talked about online. And then in the last little bit, they've sort of done an about face. They've sort of turned things around, if you would. I started to view them a little bit differently, realizing that we all make mistakes and we all can be the worst version of ourselves in any type of situation. And it sort of gave me pause. And so when I saw this week that Lex Friedman, the really high-ranked podcast on iTunes, was talking to Kevin Spacey, and then I saw a episode of 7 p.m. in Brooklyn by the Kid Mero and Carmelo Anthony, retired NBA superstar. They were talking to Will Smith and Martin Lawrence. I started to realize, maybe there's a moment being happened here about how we look at people who harm other people, or who get accused of harming other people. At the time of this recording, it has been overturned, the accusations of Harvey Weinstein in the New York cases that he was a part of. It seems that there was some tomfoolery going on with the prosecution, and because of that, I believe his case has been dropped. Now, he hasn't been released because he was also charged in other states, and he was convicted in those other states. So even though it was overturned in New York, he'll probably still spend the rest of his life behind bars. And Bill Cosby was released on the fact that the prosecution again had made certain deals with him to admit to certain things in like civil cases and stuff, just promising that he wouldn't be thrown into jail. And then I guess when a new district attorney or a new DA jumped in the picture, they kind of didn't pay attention to that deal, but unfortunately it was already signed. So Bill Cosby is a free man. And a lot of the people that were a part of the Me Too movement felt that was kind of like a slap in the face. It was like, hey, we brought this to the forefront, and these were very powerful men that was very difficult to come forward and talk about, and we have, and now it seems that they've gotten away with murder almost. And it's kind of interesting because at the height of their powers, if you want to look at anybody from an R. Kelly to a Harvey Weinstein to an Epstein who ended up killing himself to Donald Trump, if you would, or whomever, at the time they were the most popular, it would have been almost insane to even think about accusing them of anything because they had so much pull. Kevin Spacey, at the time, when he was in his prime, I mean, you're talking about Usual Suspects, American Beauty. He was in charge of a theater company in London, a couple of, just the highest ranking of awards. Bill Cosby, at one point, I believe, almost was able to buy CBS. His show was that popular and that, engrossing with culture. Will Smith, I mean, at one point was probably the most bankable, dare I say, money actor in Hollywood. I mean, he's one of the last of a dying breed of people that you know by their first names. Tom Cruise, Tom Hanks, Brad Pitt, George Clooney, Will Smith, Denzel Washington. Just people that you know, if they're in the movie, if they're in your film, it's going to make money. People are going to show up. And the fact that Will Smith was able to slap Chris Rock at an awards ceremony, not get, actually charged for it, but still get banned from, I believe it was coming to the Oscars for the next 10 years or something of that nature. And then he won with King Richard, the biopic of Serena and Venus Williams' father. So it seems that there's this shift, if you would. Because we were at a point where back a couple of years ago when Kevin Hart was kicked out of the Oscars for saying, I believe there were tweets that he had on X, the platform now known as X, where he had said something disparaging about homosexuals. James Gunn had a joke 12 years ago that got him kicked off Guardians of the Galaxy, but then hired back a couple years later. I mean, we've had issues with Dave Chappelle where people have said he's transphobic with his comedy, yet Netflix has given him even more series and more money to spout, his jokes and to say what he wants to say. And I think we're entering this space where the pendulum is swinging, not necessarily towards people who are abusers or who are people who want to hurt people, but to this place where we just can't continue just to throw people out that we don't agree with. Now, in the case of a Bill Cosby, right, or even newly found information of a Sean Puffy Combs, right, or an R. Kelly, where there's actual admittance and proof of wrongdoing. We saw that tape where Puff just ran up to Cassie, his then girlfriend at the time, and just decked her across the face, chased her in towels and bare feet. She was trying to get away. R. Kelly being convicted of running a damn near harem in his home. And, Weinstein getting charged with these things. Bill Cosby actually admitting to drugging people. I don't necessarily, in fact, I can unequivocally say I don't feel that society should let those people back in because they've caused harm. That being the case, for those who they haven't been charged with anything, it's just been hearsay and it's been accusations. And we jump to the conclusions that, the first instant that somebody says somebody is guilty, let's lock them up. Let's throw away the key. Let's not give them a chance to redeem themselves. There's a real problem with that I think society is having. But I also feel that if we're going to be honest about it, Kevin Spacey, Bill Cosby, Harvey Weinstein, R. Kelly, Tupac Shakur, if we want, Mike Tyson, Michael Jackson, Michael Jordan, Brett Favre, um, who else? Woody Allen, right? These men, as well as Martha Stewart, and who else? Jane Fonda, if you would, have all had controversy. They've all been accused of something. Maybe not Jane Fonda, but they've all been accused of either wrongdoing, been convicted of wrongdoing, served time, some of them. But their films, their music, their art, their performances, their athletic prowess is still there. It still exists. And I was sharing this with a friend of mine recently of what would happen if we as a society said, okay, the only people we can entertain, listen to, read, watch their performances are the people that have no criminal records, have never spoken ill of a politician, that have never gotten, caught in a domestic dispute, have never been caught with their hand in the cookie jar of a hedge fund and gone to jail, who's never jaywalked or lied. You'd have nobody to listen to, you'd have nothing to watch, and you'd have nothing to read. Human beings are flawed and broken people, and while I definitely agree that if harm is done, people need to go to jail, people need to be locked up, and to pay damages for the harm that they've done, not only to the victims, but to society as a whole. However, when we look at the art in particular, if we just zero in on that, should we be separating the art or the performance or the music or the painting or the sculpture or the Olympic gold medal away from that person and just focus on what they're doing? Because in a lot of cases, you'll see a film and you'll think, is that Kevin Spacey? Oh no, that's Lex Luthor from Superman Returns, but it's being played by Kevin Spacey. Oh, Mike Tyson is doing a podcast, or he's on The Hangover, and he's acting as himself, but he's still playing a role. Will Smith, he is in Bad Boys, the new version. People are going to see it, they're loving it. He slapped Chris Rock on national TV, cussed him out afterwards. Sure, it was wrong, and he's definitely paid a price with his image and with his with just a lot of roles that weren't, supposedly going to be on the table. But now it seems that that's been reversed. And so it's kind of like one of the things, the other thing I want to point out is, where do we stand as a society with the statute of limitations when it comes to bad behavior? Obviously, if somebody is charged with sexual assault or with murder or, kidnapping or something much worse, but of course, I think we should expunge them from society as a whole. And we saw that with O.J. Simpson. I mean, he passed away recently, I think just this year, and there was this real debate on what his trial meant to society. I was too young to even understand the implications about what race and how it really played in the court case, but it changed television or televised, court proceedings forever. It was literally one of the most contentious things ever to be recorded with a star. I mean, O.J. Simpson back in the day was what we would consider now maybe like a Mahomes from the Chiefs, or like a who else? Sort of like Ovechkin for hockey or whatever, or Steph Curry for basketball. I don't know. He was that famous and that beloved, and when this happened, it was like a 360, and he never really got back his clout. Now, to be fair, there was plenty of jokes made about him, and there were plenty of comedy routines made on, O.J. Simpson. But for the most part, he died in infamy, and most people, it was like, we don't want you around. So I have this article. I just want to read it here. Okay. So it's on here. There we go. So there's a list of people that they say have been, that have come back from being canceled. So they've been recovered. And this was written by Mojo. So it basically says the top 10 times celebs came back from being canceled. So let me see here. There's a list of them. I'll just read off a little bit here. So it says, top 10 times celebs came back from being canceled. Welcome to Watch Mojo, and today we're counting down our picks for the top 10 times celebs came back from being canceled. For this list, we will be looking at instances where famous people who were involved in major scandals and controversies were able to return to work in the same industry. Which fact about these celebs surprised you the most? Sound off in the comments. So the first one was James Gunn. After directing 2 intergalactic smash hits for Marvel, this creator became an in-demand star. However, his career at Disney nearly crashed and burned after attention was brought to a highly controversial joke he made in the past. The studio quickly moved to oust Gunn and relieved him of his directing duties of Guardians of the Galaxy 3. Although he didn't publicly contest the decision and apologize, many were vocal about his firing. Fans, news outlets, colleagues, and even the Guardians themselves all spoke up in support of the director. Gunn also met with Disney Studio President Alan Horn to discuss what had happened. In the end, the director was welcomed back to finish his trilogy. So we got Sarah Silverman. During Sarah Silverman's time on her self-titled Comedy Central show, she played a woman who decides to be black for a day. Oh, Lord. I forgot about this. And as part of the social experiment, the comedian also chose to use offensive makeup for the plot. While Silverman's look in that episode was controversial when it first debuted, it temporarily derailed her career. Nearly a decade later, the comedian reported that she had lost out on a role in a movie after a representative saw the sketch. After Silverman expressed regret over the episode, she continued to book various roles in films and television. Although she still made a few boundary-pushing jokes, her apology made it clear she wouldn't participate in a similar sketch again. Kathy Griffin. After Donald Trump became president, Kathy posted a picture where she held a fake head of the politician being decapitated. The implied violence and amount of blood in the image drew tons of criticism from both sides of the political aisle for its harsh nature. While Griffin quietly apologized for the mishap, her professional life suffered. She had to cut a comedy tour short and even had to answer questions from the Secret Service. After the wave of backlash, Griffin was able to sell out a new comedy tour in 2018. Although Griffin brought attention to the photo in 2020, she didn't suffer nearly as much backlash and continued to work without interpretation. Let's see, we got Nick Cannon. In 2020, a podcast recorded featuring Cannon making several comments that many deemed insensitive and anti-Semitic. He also discussed offensive conspiracy theories that focused on Jewish people. When news of these recordings spread, Cannon was allowed to continue to work on The Masked Singer, but his longtime producing partner, Viacom CBS, ended their relationship. This meant the star could no longer host his popular Wild 'N Out show. After the scandal broke, Cannon publicly apologized, met with rabbis, and gave money to a Jewish organization. In 2021, Viacom CBS responded to his efforts by reinstating him as the host of Wild 'N Out. Number 6 was Kevin Hart. Mere hours after Kevin Hart announced he was hosting the 2019 Oscar ceremonies, homophobic posts he made in the past resurfaced. Initially, he made it clear that he was unwilling to make any apologizes and gave up the hosting gig. But Hart followed that up several posts later and statements that expressed his remorse for hurting the LGBTQ+ community. Although he ultimately didn't host the Oscars, the comedian was able to rebound. Since the tweets resurfaced, he's made numerous TV appearances and headlined several major movies. Hart also gave viewers a closer look at the controversy behind the scene with a Netflix special series. Liam Neeson. Before Liam Neeson's vengeful thriller Cold Pursuit came out, he was asked about how he got into character. The actor said that he had a friend that had been assaulted by a black person. After Neeson heard the news, he walked the streets ready to hurt or even kill any black person that approached him in a threatening way. This story sparked a ton of backlash and caused an event for Cold Pursuit to be canceled. Neeson went on to make several appearances on the news outlets to state he no longer carried racist views. Although public opinion on his statement was divided, the actor kept getting cast in projects. Neeson also addressed the comments again through a satirical cameo on the show Atlanta. So Atlanta was a show, I believe, created by Donald Glover. Casey Affleck. So Affleck's Best Actor win in the '89 Academy Awards came after troubling reports from his past resurfaced. After working on 2010's I'm Still Here, two of his co-workers accused him of harassment and misconduct. The details of the claims and the fact he settled the cases returned to the headlines due to prominence of the Me Too movement in the late 2010s. Affleck further addressed the allegations by making another apology by his behavior. Additionally, he decided to break tradition by not presenting the Academy Award to the Best Actress winner. Although Affleck's reputation was tarnished in the court of public opinion, he still was cast in high-profile movies like Oppenheimer. Louis C.K. In 2017, the New York Times released an article explaining why Louis C.K. was facing multiple allegations of harassment and misconduct. After admitting that the claims were accurate, the comedian faced numerous consequences. CK saw several projects canceled and heard multiple colleagues publicly announce they would no longer work with him. Although he initially stepped out of the public eye for a time, he returned to stand-up a year later. CK has continued to work on his material, earned him a Grammy for his comedy album in 2021. However, the divided response to his award win showed that his public reputation had not yet recovered. Chris Brown. The R&B star faced extreme scrutiny after several reports confirmed he had assaulted his former partner Rihanna. In the wake of the shocking incident, he pled guilty to the attack and was required to perform community service. After Brown expressed remorse for his actions towards Rihanna, he returned to release songs and albums. The success story were also reported along articles that he had threatened and assaulted other women. Amidst the controversy, Brown won an award for Male R&B Artist of the Year at the AMAs in 2022. Although some members of the crowd booed the decision, singer Kelly Rowland defended him. The conflicting reaction seems to reflect Brown still has detractors despite his success. So a lot of people are still hating on him. And the number one is Mel Gibson. This is interesting because I didn't think he was still relevant anymore. But a pair of incidents that focused on Mel Gibson also seemed to spell the end of his career. After saying anti-Semitic comments in 2006, the public heard recordings of him making racist and violent statements to his partner in 2010. Both incidents made it difficult for Gibson to book major roles in any Hollywood project for a number of years. However, after appearing in The Expendables 3, the actor was widely celebrated for directing 2016's Hacksaw Ridge. The award buzz the film received marked a turning point for Gibson. In the following years, he began to consistently appear in prominent roles and speak about plans for future projects. Gibson's turbulent history hasn't stopped his work from being widely accepted, although we haven't seen a lot of him as prominently as we did back in the days with Lethal Weapon and when he was at his height after Braveheart and The Patriot. And I mean, there's a lot of other stars. There's the gentleman who, oh my gosh, how could I forget his name? He starred opposite of oh my gosh, it'll come to me. But anyways, there's been a large segment of people in Hollywood and music that have, ruffled the feathers of the powerful and the elite within the music and film and television and print industries, and, have come back. And it just remains to be seen whether or not certain individuals who have kind of, been at the business end of an editorial about their activities will actually be able to make it back. And I think in the end, that's one of the more interesting aspects, because everybody I listed here on this article that was written by, let me just see who this was written by Phoebe de Jour, and also by Jonathan Alexander. So that was written, it doesn't have the date, but yeah, that's from watchmojo.com. But but as I was saying, everybody at some point in time has done some horrible things, and I will repeat this ad nauseum. If you have, caused people unbelievable harm and suffering, then I think, yeah, there definitely should be a consequence. But you've got people like Jesse Smolt, Dave Chappelle, Roseanne Barr, Bill O'Reilly, who else? J.K. Rowling, Kevin Spacey, like I said recently. Who else? Gina Carraro. There's been a host of people that have just pissed people off. Jeffree Star, Josh Whedon, Sean Dawson, Doja Cat, Shia LaBeouf, the Kardashians and the Jenners, Kanye West. Who else? R. Kelly. And then we got Puff Daddy in the news right now. We've got Terry Crews, for example. I don't know what he was messed up about. But I feel like unless you've actually killed somebody, God forbid, or you've hurt somebody, chances are you can come back. Chances are you can make a hit movie. We saw what happened with Kobe Bryant, God rest his soul, when he was found not, or they settled out of court. You win a couple of championships and the city almost forgets what you did. And whether that's good or bad is a question for a whole other podcast. But I definitely feel that we're starting to see a change in culture where people who get canceled or who just get kind of cast aside by society are starting to have a bit of a moment. And I think part of that is you have to recognize that you did something wrong, that you hurt people, you hurt individuals, you caused them pain, you caused them harm, and now it's time to make amends. You've paid the man, you've paid society, you've done your time, and time to come back into the light. Because what happens, like legitimately, what happens when that person no longer, if we're going to be honest, has nowhere to go? Like what happens with the Chris Browns and the Kevin Spaceys who have who can't get a job? And again, for people who have caused problems, but I'm not talking about hurt people like physically, sexually, psychologically, whatever. But I mean, what happens to those people that, they say something online and it gets them fired, or they join an alt-right red pill group, and then before you know it, they are cast out into society. Where are they supposed to go? And what's going to happen is they will join the ilk, or they will join
movie going.
They will join the. Oh, sorry about that. They will join people who are really bad people. They'll get taken in by individuals who don't really care about them, that don't love them, that don't want anything to do with them, and then they'll be lost. I can't tell you how many podcasts or articles I've read of people who've fallen into the MAGA online sort of thing, or they've fallen into cultures that just want to feed on their pain and their frustration, and they don't really want to see change. They just want to see the world burn, and they want more angry and upset and just frustrated people in their ranks. And so when those individuals are like, who cares, da da da, we have to have the grace to say, okay, you've done wrong. We're not going to bludgeon you over the head with it. You can come back. If you act up again, you're out of here. But we got to find a way to forgive. And like I said, from a societal point, what Chris Brown did to Rihanna was reprehensible. It was horrible. Smacking up your girlfriend. What Kevin Spacey is accused of, if he did it, is gross. Johnny Depp really did hit Amber Heard and, get rough with her and push her around. And if she did that to him, they're both at fault. But society is rife with people who have done wrong to other people, and we got to find some kind of way to, I don't want to say move past it, but to at least exist within it and find some way to give people grace. Obviously, circumstances depending, But yeah, that was kind of what I was thinking of today. It was very interesting to see somebody like a Kevin Spacey on a podcast. Because if you think about it, he was one of those A-listers that, probably couldn't even be bothered with the podcast. But now he's on one of the most popular ones ever. And if I'm not mistaken, let me just see where we're at here. I forget how many views it has, but let's just see. Let me just see. Because he is back in the news in a big way. It was 11 days ago on the Lex Friedman podcast, and it has over 1.3 million views in 11 days. He's also been on the Piers Morgan show, where it has been stated that he faces debt in the millions. I think another thing we have to realize when people get cast out, right? You can't work. It takes a lot out of you. So when people come with their pitchforks and they come with all that kind of stuff, he's been making the rounds, obviously. He has been talking to people, and there more will come out, obviously. And a lot of people are saying, oh, well, maybe it's just an act. Maybe he is just trying to get sympathy, raise some more capital. But I don't know. I definitely want to check out one of his podcasts just to kind of see what he has to say about what's been going on and everything else. But I think we need to realize, man, how could I put this? If we don't bring people out from that wilderness, kind of like what happened with Killmonger and Black Panther, they'll return and burn everything down. And it may not even feel right to give grace and mercy to somebody like, let's say, like a C.K. Lewis, because he was such a gross person and what he was doing. And maybe that's for the victims to decide. Maybe that's not even for us as a society. Maybe that's for the victims and the victim's family. Maybe we should take our cues from them. I don't know. But all I do know is it can, if we're not careful, man, if we're not careful, we could find ourselves at the end of the noose of the court of public opinion for something we believe in or something that we've said and that we, want to be true, and find ourselves destitute. And so, yeah, I'm definitely I'll probably do another episode of this, because there's a number of other actors and people within the various spaces out there. You got your Candace Owenses, and you've got your Tucker Carlsons and your, people who have been thrown under the bus. Fox News, through whatever you think about Tucker Carlson, or whatever you think about a Candace Owens or any of these talking news pundits, a lot of them were thrown under the bus by their prospective companies or bosses or agencies. And I don't know. I think so kind of want to end this here, but I will say, if a person has hurt somebody in a physical, sexual, psychological way, then definitely put them under the grave, put them under the prison. They've committed a criminal act. If somebody has had an opinion that you don't like, they have shared a truth that they feel is self-evident, be it on evolution or creationism or vaccines, whatever it is, and that runs afoul, or you say a joke that's homophobic or transphobic or racist, and we don't give people the ability to come back from that, then we're asking for trouble. We are. And I think we also have to take into account that it could easily be us. We gotta kind of have to move in that space. But nonetheless, thank you for listening. Much appreciated. At the end of the day, we're all on this big blue planet together, and yeah. So thank you for listening. Much appreciated. Again, happy Father's Day to all the fathers out there, wherever you are, whatever you're doing. Keep doing it. If you have a dad, give him a shout. If you don't, and he was a jerk, then try to be maybe a good example to somebody you know out there. But until next time, thank you so much for listening. Take care out there. Until next time, peace.